This episode is proudly supported by Pepe Sayer Australian Cultured Butter.
At Pepe Sayer, we focus on quality. So if someone comes into your restaurant and they see you're using Pepe Sayer, they know immediately that that is a quality product you've got in front of you on the table. And that comes from a decade of just doing quality butter day after day.
For more information, go to pepesayer.com.au.
I mean, ultimately, I just love cooking, you know? It's like people ask me what I do on my days off. I cook. You know, it's ridiculous. It's pretty much my only hobby, you know?
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The connection between grower and chef has in some ways become closer than ever. From the 100-mile movement to slow food, kitchen gardens, and farms creating their own accommodation and top-class restaurants. What's it like for a chef working on the farm and delivering exceptional dining experiences, accessing produce literally on the doorstep? Ally Waddell is the head chef of Frida's Field in Byron Bay. Ally, how are you?
Very good, thanks, Huck. Thanks for having me on Deep in the Weeds.
It's great to get you on the show. You've got a fascinating job and access to extraordinary produce. What's it like working on a farm and a kitchen restaurant?
It's an absolute privilege, Huck. It really is. We have a small team that operates at Frida's Field, and it's a beautiful part of the Northern Rivers that we're in. We're located in Nashua, about 5 minutes from Bangalore. We have 90 Angus Wagyu crossbreed cattle that the owners look after, and we have a huge kitchen garden project that Edward and Jeannie, the owners, have been working on for a period of time. So we're sourcing directly from the farm and also from our local producers in the Byron Shire region. The connection that we have is just it makes the complete experience for us as cooks and chefs to be able to operate this way and to offer that to our clientele coming in the door for the lunch at the weekend or for their event. It's very special.
It's a pretty unique job compared to most chefs around the globe. What sort of impact does that direct sort of access have on your creativity?
It's everything, you know. When we go to write a menu, we change the menu twice seasonally. So each season, it gives us the opportunity to really dig deep into the produce that's available for us. So you know, it's definitely walking around the farm with a pen and paper, and the same at the farmers market, seeing what ingredients is coming up and just capturing it in that moment when it's at its best. You know, we can pick it. Any herbs that we're going to be using, any fresh ingredients is picked on the morning of service. And then anything we need to prepare is literally harvested the day before it's going to be prepared. So we're really fortunate in that sense, you know, and working very closely with Jeannie on the farm, we can be very proactive about getting that ingredients, and you know we don't try and mess around with it too much. My cuisine over the years that I've been cooking has definitely got simpler, and we've definitely kind of pulled back on the frills. And what we want to offer here is an exceptional dining experience, but we're letting the produce do the talking. The beef that is being reared is fantastic quality as well. So we're very, very fortunate. We can plan ahead. You know, we've taken 2 steers recently that are hanging in our cool room at the moment. So then you kind of work through how we're going to use this beast and how we're going to do it justice. So what it does is it gives me and the team a really great respect for the produce that's growing and for the cattle that's been reared on the property. And you know, with that respect is understanding and a really desire to do well with the ingredients and ultimately produce something that's delicious, but at the same time sustainable and grown the right way at the right time.
Do you have any influence on the sort of produce that is grown so you can sort of plan ahead and change the menu in that sense?
Absolutely, yes. So Ginny and I will talk about this on a weekly basis. We'll see what's coming up. It's been a funny old year with a lot of rainfall in the northern rivers. So that's been a challenge for the gardeners. To the winter seeds didn't go in till much later. So there's a few things that are kind of popping up in spring this year that we would have expected in winter. But that's just all part of the fun, we map out what's going to be coming up at what time of the season, how we're going to use it. And then we just work from there.
What's the sort of hero produce that work in that region? And is there produce that doesn't grow in that region that you can't sort of access?
Yeah, I mean, it's a subtropical climate. And, I think when it gets hot quickly. Some summer ingredients, Jeannie's got the seeds in now for different zucchini varieties, tomatoes, different capsicums. Right now, the spring produce is just coming up through in abundance. So it's all the green stuff. It's the snow peas, the sugar snaps, the green beans. We've got garlic season coming up as well. This year, we'll take all the garlic escapes. We'll grill and preserve them for a little snack for our guests. We're going to drop half of the harvest of garlic at 60 degrees for black garlic that we'll use in the menus and potentially sell in our farm shop later on in the year. So it's just really kind of getting into those lively spring ingredients coming out of a chilly, wet winter.
Well, I want to explore sort of what you're doing there in detail a bit further on, but take us back to when you were young. What was food like in your family growing up?
Growing up in Scotland, Glasgow's eastern suburbs, we definitely grew up with a basic diet that you would expect from a normal family in the 80s and 90s. My mum cooked, my grans both cooked and baked. We were big fans of food and good eaters. There was no homegrown or exciting ingredients that was around, and I certainly hadn't considered cooking as a career at that stage until one day, basically a part-time job, as many people do, falling into the industry. I was 16 years old. I was in my last year at high school, delivering newspapers, and I was desperate for a part-time job, just to make some cash. Funnily enough, I had my application was rejected at both McDonald's and the local supermarket. My pride was dented early on, but luckily enough, there was a role became available at the local family pub restaurant called the Springcroft, just a few steps down the road from where we lived. And it was basically a chain of pubs. Now, it was no temple of gastronomy by any means, but it was still an excellent introduction into the world of hospitality, That job, I stayed there for 2 years. It taught me a lot about kitchen survival skills, I would be running, I would be at school during the day, and then by night I would be running the pass for 300 covers in this busy pub, I immediately felt at home in the kitchen. I loved the team spirit and camaraderie and all the theatre that was going on. It felt like you had joined a sports team, and I was no good at sport, but it was nice to be a part of something and feel valued in that team, the team, real motley crew of individuals, full of real characters, as many kitchens are, I suppose. Everyone was accepted and made to feel welcome. Late night parties and lock-in poker games after the pub, and then back to school studies the next morning, So I was definitely hooked on it. Enjoyed the experience, and at that stage I decided I wanted to pursue a career in hospitality as a chef. I signed up for a professional cookery diploma at the Glasgow College of Food Technology, which was a 3-year course. So that was exciting. I was travelling into the city every day, meeting other chefs and learning about restaurants. And, I was just really excited by this world. Of cookery, and wanted to explore all the opportunities that might come through. After I was two years at the Springcroft pub, and then I throughout college, I guess I took on a few different roles, changed jobs each year. Each job a step up from the last in terms of the quality of the cuisine, and continue to learn. And then in my last year at college, I landed a commie chef job with a brilliant chef called Kenny Copeman at Farfaloo restaurant in Glasgow's Merchant City. Up until that point, the kitchens I had worked in were perhaps not the most professional environments. There was lots of pranks and mischief and all the carry on. And then I turned up at Farfaloo and the team were all Michelin trained. This was serious business. The standards were much higher than I had been used to. The chef, Kenny, he was 6 foot tall. I certainly didn't mince his words. And it felt like a tense environment at times. But the guys really took me in and were very good to me. They lent me cookbooks and offered advice regularly. And I was definitely just kind of dipping my toe into the pond of fine dining. And it was very, very, very exciting, I specifically remember it was the first time I ever saw the French Laundry cookbook, and I was gobsmacked. One afternoon, the chef Kenny, he was in the little tiny box office behind the kitchen, and he called me in. He said, "Ali, look at this," and of course, it's the French Laundry cookbook. My jaw just about hit the floor. I'd just never seen, cuisine of that quality, and so I was completely inspired. So I was with Kenny and the team for maybe about a year and a half. After a busy year, I opened a new venue with Kenny and his chefs, and at the same time, I was juggling a full-time diploma course at college. And after that, I was 19 years old. I was pretty tired. I never had a day off in my last year at college, and I was kind of working into this intense environment, and so I was unclear of what my next step was going to be. And then a good opportunity arose, and myself and a few college mates were accepted into an internship in the USA. So this was at a place called Big Cedar Lodge in Missouri. So it was a beautiful wilderness retreat on Table Rock Lake, basically on the border of Missouri and Arkansas. I was 19. I just left home for the first time. Absolute culture shock. And listen, it was a great experience. We had a lot of fun, probably too much fun. We had one of these staff accommodation houses that they put about eight guys in it, and, so there was 7 bedrooms, and it literally became a rock and roll madhouse. There was daily parties, mischief, you would wake up and you would be like, who are these guys asleep on the sofa right now? It was a lot of fun, I remember one day I came home, and this was about the time I decided to leave. There was 3 tradies sat on my sofa in the living room. I'd never seen them before, and in the middle of the day they were watching pornography. And I'm just like, hey, you right here, guys? So about that time, I was starting to question how comfortable I was living in this house. But listen, it was a great experience. All my colleagues were local rednecks, but they were a fantastic, welcoming bunch. And the cuisine was basic, but I took a lot of life experience from the year that I had there, and I had definitely caught the travel bug, and was very keen to continue travelling on in the future. However, at that stage, I returned to Scotland and I was definitely ready to get my head down and do some serious work. I was hungry, I guess, to work at a high level and basically see if I was capable of working in a Michelin level restaurant. All that said, though, I don't think anything could have prepared me for the job that I took on at that stage. So I went to work with one of Scotland's top chefs, Paul Tamburini, at the Cameron House in Loch Lomond. So Paul had recently taken over as the head chef of the fine dining restaurant, the Georgian Room within the hotel. So Paul was very well known within the industry, very strong reputation, star-studded CV. Paul is definitely the most talented chef I've ever worked with, and is without a doubt the greatest influence on my career. Paul worked at 100 miles per hour all day, every day. It was relentless. It was hard to keep up, Many didn't in the kitchen. The standards were exceptionally high. Everything had to be perfect every time, and the quality of the food was sublime. It would be French in technique with Scottish produce. So, think veloutés with roasted langoustines and sautéed foie gras. We did game bird pithiviers, assiettes, finest quality terrines. Soufflés, tarte tatans for dessert, very, very technical prep for young cooks to do confidently. But, I was a sponge at the time. I was absorbing it. I was learning. It was tough. A very tough job at that young age. Long days, massive workload to keep on top of just on a daily basis. You had to be very, very focused, and definitely to be in that team, give 100% every single day. I was with Paul initially for 3 years at Cameron House. And over that period of time, I definitely felt I had developed into a strong, disciplined cook. Paul was always an incredible mentor and really pushed me to gain experience in all sections of the kitchen to help develop my skill set. That's something that's really, really important. I think in this day and age, we're always throwing band-aids around to make things work. And, a chef, or where have you worked before? I was in pastry. Okay, you can do pastry. Or you're a sauce chef, get on the sauce section. Paul really pushed me to get around every section. I didn't really want to learn pastry. I didn't really want to do the larder section, but I was made to do it each section for 6 months. And in those, in that period of time, the experience that I took has stood me in very good stead for the rest of my career. I was definitely immersed in this world of fine dining. And while we're at Cameron House, as tough as it was, there was a lot of incentives that kept us moving forward and kept us inspired to be there. We were all sent on stages down to England to go to the Michelin star restaurants and work for a week or two. We flew down to London to have lunch at Tom Aiken's restaurant. I competed in Young Chef of the Year competition. And we also hosted the legendary chef Albert Roux on several occasions when he visited the hotel as a guest chef. So yeah, there was some fantastic opportunities whilst I was employed there, and so I rose up through the ranks, working with Paul in the Georgian Room, from a demi chef originally right up until sous chef. And then at the end of the 3 years, Paul, myself, and the other sous chef were employed to relaunch a famous hotel in Glasgow called One Devonshire Gardens. And the restaurant was very, very famous. Andrew Fairley had a restaurant in there at one point. Gordon Ramsay had a restaurant in there at one point. So there was a very high level of expectation when Paul and our team took over. So yeah, that was that. But at that same time, I was definitely planning my escape. I was young. By that time, I was pretty. I guess I was exhausted. It was stressful. It was a stressful job. I was 23 years old, and I hadn't really done anything with my own life over that 3-year period. So yeah, I definitely. It was always in my head to go overseas again. I was considering a lot of options. Chef Paul wanted me to go to France. I think at that stage I wasn't ready, to dive into a Michelin-starred restaurant in France. Don't speak a word of French. And I had some friends that were booking to do a round-the-world trip and ultimately spend a lot of that in Australia. I thought that sounds like a good opportunity for me. That's what I want to do, have a break, go and see some of the world. And that was it. Working holiday, Australia, here we come.
Were you surprised by the culinary landscape in Australia when you got here?
Listen, to be honest, Huck, the first 6 months I was trying to clear my head, and really just take a breather. So when I arrived, I spent time doing some farm work. I did agency work in Perth, and had a fantastic time traveling. And towards the end of my trip, I was definitely missing working in restaurants, or working in good restaurants anyway. So basically, at the end of my 1-year visa, I was going to return, but I went home to Scotland for 8 months. Returned to work with Paul at One Devonshire Gardens, where he had been for the last year. And I was desperate to get back to Australia. It was a good experience returning home. The job was fantastic, very challenging. Again, different style. Paul's cuisine was a little bit more modern. We just started using sous vide machines and high tech equipment in the kitchen. So it was good to be continually learning. But I wanted to go back to Australia. I had my heart set on returning to Melbourne. So after 8 months, returned to Melbourne, and I scored a job at Bistro Guillaume, which had recently opened in the Crown Casino.
How different was that kitchen compared to the ones you were used to in Scotland?
It was very similar, to be honest, Huck. I applied to go and work there because, I went around, read a few guidebooks, walked around the restaurants, read the menus, and I understood French cuisine. And I thought, this will be a good job for me to settle in. So it was a great, busy kitchen. It was a great team that Guillaume had when he first opened. And it was an exciting kitchen to be in. It was fast paced, really, really, really busy. Obviously very classical bistro French food. After 6 months, I was just kind of sick of being in the city. I wanted to travel. I wanted to get out there a little bit more. And ultimately, I ended up hitting the road, and I ended up in the Whitsundays. So I took the job, which was only meant to be temporary, at Qualia Resort on Hamilton Island, and I ended up being there for 6.5 years. Yes. So I took the role on. I was the senior sous chef for 2 years. I was sponsored by Hamilton Island, and the resort was about 1 year old when I got there. So I worked under the previous chef, Jane, for 2 years. And then after that, they basically handed me the keys to the place and said, all right, you're the exec chef, off you go. I was 28 years old. It was a bit scary. It was, it's a beautiful resort. 2 restaurants, a lot of high-profile events. The Sailing Audi Race Week every year, guest chef events, media, VIPs, celebrity guests. And it was a big job for a first head chef job, and never imagined I would have a role as big as the Qualia role. But I absolutely...
Do you have any stories of the events or experiences that you had there?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, my very first event in charge of the kitchen, we ran an event called the Great Barrier Feast. So it would run 3 times a year. You would invite a guest chef to come and cook. He would do a masterclass. Your kitchen team would do a welcome dinner, and then the guest chef would do a showcase dinner on the first day. So very exciting. It'll be 140 guests. They would all be staying in house. So I was very excited to see who the first guest chef would be that was coming while I was in charge. And of course, it was my former employer, Guillaume Brahimi. So it definitely added an extra element of stress for me with Guillaume coming. Oh my God, are you guys kidding? Like, come on, this start me off with someone I don't know, But it was great. Guillaume was fantastic, and he's been very supportive of my career since then. And we were lucky to host him a number of times at Qualia. We spent a lot of time in Audi Race Week with the Vue de Monde team and a number of others over the years that came. We did a beautiful dinner. We each did 2 dishes each with myself, Peter Gilmore and Dan Hunter. And it's just a real career high, to work with these guys that are at the absolute top of their games and absolute leaders of gastronomy in Australia and globally. To welcome them into our kitchen and get to cook with them and do a dish as well, it was absolutely fantastic. Amazing experience, it was a big job. I was absolutely obsessed with getting everything right. I was a workaholic. I worked 7 days, all day, every day, pretty much for a period of time. It was, looking back, it was completely unnecessary. There's ways I could have managed it better. But I was absolutely obsessed and driven with driving this place forward and building a great team and cooking exceptional cuisine. And I would say my management style would have been very poor. Definitely adopted traits of former employers. And spitting the dummy. There was a few tantrums, but you learn and you grow. You grow from these experiences. And, I definitely have found a spot in my life now where I'm very relaxed, and I've found great balance with my work life. I thought I could never do it as a chef, to be honest. I thought, this is me until I'm 60 years old. I'm going to be doing 70 hours a week. That's it. Or I'm not going to be happy, Working at Frida's has it's changed a lot. At the same time, just before I started at Frida's, we had a child. My partner Moira and myself. We had our daughter who's about to turn 2. So obviously you grow up a lot and you change a lot. I've managed to build a much healthier lifestyle in terms of what I eat, the way I live my life, and my stress levels, and how I deal with people at work, how I deal with situations, and it's definitely changed. It's changed my life. I feel fresh. I feel happy. I feel enthused. I want to be at work. I'm very happy to be returning to work after the weekends. I'm always excited about what's going on, and that's how you should feel. You shouldn't be terrified to go to work. You shouldn't be stressed to the eyeballs doing your admin on your days off. You need to put your foot down and find a better way at some stage in your life, or it will just consume you. So I'm super happy that I've recently made these changes in my life, and more than anything, I'm coming up on 40 just now, Huck, and it's fitness. To be on your feet every day, you need to be physically fit and mentally fit to be performing at a high level in this industry. So it's, a day off well spent, eating some healthy food and spending time with the family, sleeping well, is absolutely changed my outlook in life and the way I'm feeling and the way I approach my work and the people around me, And you can see with that, we have a very small team at Frida's, but I just try and give my team opportunities. I try and give them a voice. I try and make them feel involved, and it's important. And if you plant those seeds, then they'll grow. People will surprise you and bring ideas to the table. And previously, I don't think the industry was like that. When I was a sous chef, I never put a dish on the menu. My opinion was never asked in terms of what we should be producing. And one day you wake up and you're a head chef and you're like, oh God, how are we going to do this? So giving your staff the tools to tap into their creative side, I think, is extremely important in order for them to move forward and have a successful career themselves.
You've lived in the Byron Bay region for quite a bit of time now, and you've had roles with Harvest and obviously the role now. What do you love about that region and what keeps you there?
Working in the Northern Rivers is super, super special. I've been here for 5 years now, and there is just a great little foodie community that's here, between the farmers, the producers, the restaurants. There's a great little hub of fantastic restaurants that didn't exist maybe 5 to 10 years ago in this region. So it's good. It's definitely, we're attracting top professionals to come to this region, which is great. I think it helps everyone up their game when there's a bit more competition around, and it definitely attracts top quality staff to move out to this region as well. It's just fantastic traveling around the hinterland, dropping in to see a farmer, and just be able to have FaceTime with them is super important for our future menus and our creativity, and just general understanding of food systems and how it grows and why it grows. And, if something's out of season, you hear the farmer's story. And, farmers in this region have had numerous struggles between the pandemic, the fires, the floods recently this year, and a lot of rainfall. It's super important that as industry professionals, we're supporting these guys. We're using the ingredients that they can grow, and we're trying to just promote them as much as possible.
You mentioned a bit earlier that your cooking and food has changed quite a lot over the years, and the menu sort of speaks of the seasons and a sense of time and place with the access that you have. Do you have a dish or two that you can tell us about that sort of speaks of where you're at the moment?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, like I said, we're changing our menu every 6 weeks at the moment, and we've just started to tap into the spring ingredients that are coming through. We're doing a delicious dish this week going on the menu. It's basically a smoked fish broth. It's a take on a traditional Scottish soup called Cullen Skink. It's a horrible name, Cullen Skink, so that's not going on the menu. And it's a really rustic soup. It's basically smoked haddock and potato cooked with a saffron fish stock. So we're going to do a kind of tidy, more refined version of that. So all the flavour, all these amazing characteristics are coming through in the broth, and then we just drop in some green peas, snow peas, some sugar snaps, and just a couple of herbs from the garden. It's a really honest dish, but absolutely full in flavour. And then we're right at this moment, we're braising the shins from our two steers that we've had hanging in the fridge for a couple of weeks. So we're basically going to be pressing them down and slowly cooked for 14 hours, and then they're going to be served with just a fantastic parsley herb sauce and just some wonderful sides for our main course. So it's really fantastic working with the cattle that's coming off the property as well. It's really given us an understanding of whole beast butchery. I was relatively experienced with pigs and lambs, but when you come to doing a whole cow, it's just a completely different kettle of fish, you know. So it's been good, and that's something that's really special, that we've been able to train our chefs on whole beast butchery and just getting them to understand and respect what we're doing with that animal. We also have a huge mandarin tree that's about 100 years old on Frida's. When it comes to harvesting the mandarins, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of mandarins. So what we've done is, over the last 2 years, we've done a mandarin dessert using all parts of the mandarin. So just a little zero waste number. So our last menu consisted of a mandarin trifle, which I absolutely loved. We used the juice to prepare a mandarin champagne jelly. We used the skin to produce an alcoholic stock that we would soak the sponge in, and then also a marmalade that would be in the bottom of the dish. Yeah, we're just trying to look at these ingredients and just see how we can maximise them, you know.
You came to Australia for a bit of a break, but you've made the most incredible impact on the dining landscape since you arrived. What do you love about what you do? I
love this profession for a number of reasons, but I think it's one that's just very honest. And what I mean by that is when you come to work in hospitality, it's hands-on and you need to perform, you know, and there's no place to hide. Individuals that come to work in the kitchen, you can tell right away if they're the right individual to come and join your team. And you know, that I get the greatest joy now from building a good team and training staff, because with the current skill shortages that we're experiencing, it's the most important thing. Young individuals, young and middle-aged guys that are coming and cooking with us at Frida's, you know, we're trying to give them some freedom. And listen to their ideas and bring them on board so that they can contribute to what we're coming up with, but continue to develop themselves. I mean, ultimately, I just love cooking, you know. It's like people ask me what I do in my days off. I cook. You know, it's ridiculous. It's pretty much my only hobby, you know. And you know, I honestly believe over the last couple of years, I have become a much better cook in general through cooking at home. You know, you ask any chef, and you know, there's reasons behind this, but there's many chefs that don't cook at home very often at all. You know, or it might be once every couple of weeks, or it might just be, you know, something basic. It's a great way to challenge yourself and really learn, you know. And it's so much different from cooking professionally in the kitchen, because you know, you have guys to bounce off of, you have equipment, you have you know, ingredients, but when you're cooking for yourself and your family at home, it definitely has given me a lot of understanding, you know, about how people want to eat, and you know, taking a healthier approach to preparing our cuisine. You know, just using minimal fats. You know, our dishes are vegetable based where possible, from what we've grown, and then it's maybe the addition of some beef fat that can just accentuate the dish, or a piece of grilled local seafood. But yeah, just keeping it light and healthy approach, I think, is good. So yeah, I've definitely taught myself a lot with the old home cookery game. Lots of fun.
Well, Ally, it's been amazing catching up with you. I know you've got many more stories, so I'd love to catch up again. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks so much, Huck. Really appreciate your time. Great to chat.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.